72 hours in the heart of a Montana blizzard changed everything. Howard, a 68-year-old widower, thought he was only clearing snow from his porch. He didn't realize he was about to face a life-or-death choice that would save more than just a dog. The wind was a monster that morning. It howled down from the Bitterroot Mountains, shoving Howard back inside his cabin. He was out there with his shovel just trying to clear a path to the woodpile. That's when he saw it. A little bundle of fur, completely still. At first, Howard thought it was just a piece of debris, maybe a forgotten pelt. He nudged it with his boot. No movement. The cold was so intense, you could feel it right through your thickest layers. This little dog, a Beagle mix, as far as he could tell, was nothing but ice and bone. Howard, a man who had seen combat, didn't flinch easily. But this sight, this tiny frozen creature, it was a punch to the gut. He knelt down. Just barely, he felt the faintest quiver. Life, still there. He scooped the puppy up. The small body was rigid, stiff as a board. Howard rushed him inside, straight to the living room and the big stone fireplace. He wrapped the dog in an old work blanket. Howard stood over the struggling creature. His heart was pounding, but his mind was already building a wall. "You listen to me, pup," he muttered, his voice gravelly. "I'm not built for this. I can't do this again. I've said my goodbyes. This is where I stop." He'd been alone for 5 years since his wife, Carol, passed. The last thing he needed was something fragile to care for. The commitment was too much. He poured a small dish of warm water, placing it next to the whimpering dog. "The choice is yours, little one. The will to live has to come from you." He felt the emotional burden already settling on his shoulders. He walked away, taking a seat in his worn leather armchair, watching the fire instead of the dog. It was a clear signal. The fight was on, but Howard was trying to stay out of it. Howard didn't sleep a wink that night. Every hour he was up, moving the blankets, checking the breath. He told himself it was just a practical matter. He couldn't leave a half-dead animal on his floor. But he kept checking. By the next morning, the puppy was still alive, but barely responsive. Howard knew he had to push fluids. He used an old plastic syringe, gently working drops of warm, sugary water into the dog's mouth. 1 drop, 2 drops. It was painstaking work. Then around noon, something shifted. Howard had mixed a bit of canned food with water, creating a sloppy, smelly mash. He held the dish close, and the little Beagle, who he'd tentatively named Rusty because of the color of his fur, lifted his head, just an inch. Then very slowly, his tiny pink tongue flicked out and managed a weak lick. "There you go, Rusty," Howard whispered, leaning in. "That's the fight I was talking about." The relief was a powerful wave. It washed over Howard, pushing back the cold wall he'd built. A fragile little tail gave the faintest thump against the blanket. Victory. If you think that was the hard part, you haven't seen anything yet. You're going to want to stick around to see how this all ends. Trust me, it gets rougher before it gets better. But that relief, it was tragically short-lived. Just 2 hours after Rusty finally managed to stand on his shaky legs, everything went sideways. Rusty started shivering uncontrollably, but this wasn't a gentle shiver. It was a full-body convulsion. His eyes rolled back. His tiny body went rigid again, tighter than when he was frozen. A spike of fever, too much warmth too fast, or maybe a delayed reaction to the trauma. Howard grabbed his old thermometer. It spiked, dangerously high. "No, no, no!" Howard's pragmatic voice cracked. "Not now, Rusty. Not when we're so close." All the progress they had made, the standing, the lick, the thump of the tail, it vanished in an instant. Howard had prepared for a cold death, but he wasn't prepared for this sudden, fiery collapse. He looked at the fragile life in his hands, and the full weight of the responsibility crashed down on him. He was back to square one, but the stakes were even higher now. That night became the true test. It was a grueling, terrifying battle against the clock. Howard didn't call a vet. The nearest one was hours away through the storm. He was on his own, relying on old, half-remembered knowledge from his youth on the farm. He worked tirelessly. Cool compresses on the puppy's paws, rubbing the tiny ears to try and stimulate circulation. He had to keep the fever down without shocking the system again. He knew the risk. The Beagle was fading. His breathing became shallow, erratic. Then, the terrifying moment. Rusty's breathing stopped. Howard froze. His heart seized in his chest. Oh God, no! Not like this! This wasn't combat. This was just a helpless, innocent life he'd promised to save. He plunged into action, placing his fingers, two large, calloused fingers, over the dog's ribcage. He began gentle, rhythmic compressions. 1, 2, 3. He breathed a small puff of air into the puppy's snout. He repeated the cycle. The air was thick with tension, fear, and the smell of pine smoke. Come on, Rusty, fight! Don't you dare quit on me! You have to fight! After what felt like an hour but was only 45 seconds, Rusty gasped. A sudden, ragged, life-affirming gasp. The tiny chest expanded. The eyes fluttered open. The relief didn't bring joy. It brought exhaustion and a complete surrender of Howard's emotional defenses. He slumped back against the hearth. The cold, practical veteran was gone. Only the grieving husband remained. He reached for a small cedar chest near the fireplace. Inside, neatly folded, was a soft, cream-colored wool sweater. It was Carol's favorite. She'd worn it every winter. He hadn't touched it since her death. Howard took the sweater out. He carefully wrapped Rusty in the soft wool, pulling the puppy close to his chest. He could feel the familiar scent of lavender and old wool. It was a profound, vulnerable act. He was using the last tangible piece of his wife's comfort to save this small new life. He rocked back and forth, whispering, "She would have loved you, Rusty. She'd have been mad at me for almost leaving you out there." He remembered a lullaby Carol used to sing, an old Irish tune. His voice, unused to singing, was rough and off-key, but he didn't care. "Sleep now, little warrior. Sleep now, my friend," he sang, the tune barely audible. "The snow will turn to spring, and this long night will end." He sang until the first gray light of dawn crept through the cabin windows. Rusty was breathing steadily. The fever had broken. He was sleeping, wrapped in Carol's love. In that dawn, Howard realized the truth. He hadn't just saved a puppy. Rusty had dismantled the walls of grief Howard had lived inside for 5 years. He was whole again. The love that night was real, but Howard's life was still alone in a cabin. The decision he makes next is the hardest choice any rescuer has to make. Don't click away. You have to see what he does to guarantee Rusty's future. Later that morning, heavy-hearted, Howard knew what he had to do. He couldn't give Rusty the life he deserved, a life with walks, playmates, and constant attention. He was an old man in the woods. He called his friend, a volunteer at the Missoula County Humane Society. The conversation was short and painful. "I found a good one, Dale. A little Beagle mix. He needs a family, not just an old man's good intentions. Can you help me find him a home? A real home?" Howard put the phone down. A deep, aching silence filled the cabin. He looked at Rusty, now awake and nibbling happily on food. The practical decision was made. But the emotional pain was just beginning. The feeling of loss, the knowing that he had done the right thing, yet it still hurt. That's the weight of true love. Howard felt the familiar pain of goodbye returning, but this time, it was a pain mixed with pride. The next day, Howard spent every waking moment with Rusty. This was their goodbye, a last celebration of the life they'd saved together. He put on his heaviest coat, gently wrapped Rusty in a small blanket, and carried him outside for one last trip to the snow. The fierce storm had broken, leaving behind a world of sparkling white silence. Howard set Rusty down. The puppy was hesitant at first, remembering the fear of the cold. But then instinct took over. Rusty's nose hit the ground and he exploded into action, burrowing, chasing, and sniffing with the manic joy of a true beagle. Howard watched. The beagle was a tiny brown and white comet streaking across the white landscape. Every leap, every happy sneeze was a living testament to the sheer, stubborn power of life. Howard felt his chest tighten. He pulled an old tennis ball from his pocket, a ball his own long-gone family dog used to love. He tossed it. Rusty, clumsy but determined, chased it down. It was perfect. Too perfect. "You're too good for this place, little guy," Howard whispered, watching Rusty bring the ball back, dropping it right at his feet. "You need kids to play with. You need a yard to run in. You need a young family to give you a long life." He knelt down in the cold snow. He pulled Rusty close and buried his face in the soft fur. He wanted to memorize the moment, the smell of the puppy, the way the fur felt, the warm, wet lick on his cheek. Rusty gave him a final lingering lick right under his eye. It was a silent, soulful thank you. Then the sound, the crunch of tires on the packed snow. The new owners were here. Howard quickly stood up, brushing the snow from his jacket. He needed to be the practical veteran again. He couldn't let them see the tears. The new family was perfect. A young couple, Sarah and Tom, with a fenced farm property and an older yellow lab named Gus, who needed a friend. They were kind, gentle, and utterly delighted by Rusty. Howard handed the leash over. He tried to make it quick, professional. "He's had his shots. He loves peanut butter. He's house-trained now, mostly." Howard managed, his voice steady. Sarah knelt down, scooping Rusty up. "Thank you, sir. You saved his life. You are a hero." Howard just nodded, unable to speak. He watched them walk back to their truck. He saw Rusty looking back at him over Sarah's shoulder, a confused, sad look in his brown eyes. The truck door closed. The engine started, and then the truck was gone, disappearing into the vast, silent stretch of the Montana Forest Road. Howard walked back inside his cabin. The silence hit him like a physical blow. The work blanket was still on the floor. The little food dish was still by the fire. But the playful sound of tiny claws on the wood floor, the soft whimpering, the happy sniffing, it was all gone. He sat back in his armchair. He stared at the fire, but it offered no warmth. The feeling was worse than before Rusty arrived. He felt an intense, agonizing void. He had opened his heart only to have to close it again. This was the high cost of compassion, the ultimate bittersweet sadness. He had won the battle for Rusty's life, but he felt like he'd lost his own. Howard just sat there. He thought about getting up, maybe putting another log on the fire, maybe just going to bed for a week. He felt drained, hollowed out. He had done the right thing. He kept repeating it in his mind, trying to make the feeling stick. The right thing, the right thing. But the cold, empty silence of the cabin just swallowed the words whole. He was just about to rise when he heard it, faintly at first, through the thick walls and the dying wind, the sound of an engine. It wasn't a logging truck. It was the distinct sound of a pickup truck turning around and slowly, carefully, driving back up his long, snow-covered driveway. Howard rushed to the window. It was Sarah and Tom's truck. They were back. Why? Did something go wrong? Was Rusty sick again? The anxiety, which had just begun to subside, spiked again, higher than before. Howard yanked open the cabin door and stepped out onto the porch. Sarah and Tom were already out of the truck. Rusty was in Tom's arms. "Mr. Howard," Sarah called out, smiling, but her eyes looked serious. "We need to talk to you." Howard walked slowly toward them, his heart pounding. "What is it? Is the fever back?" Tom gently set Rusty down. The puppy immediately bounded toward Howard, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. He was ecstatic. He jumped up on Howard's coat, licking and whimpering with sheer joy. Howard knelt down, hugging the dog with all his strength. "Hey, old friend, you came back. What's going on?" Sarah stepped forward. She looked down at Rusty, then back at Howard, who was now weeping openly into the dog's fur. "Mr. Howard," Sarah began, her voice soft but firm, "we didn't come back because he was sick. We came back because we saw the way he looked at you. And frankly, sir, we saw the way you looked at him." Tom stepped in. "We drove for 20 minutes, and we realized something. We can give him a good life, a big yard, and a friend in Gus. But you, sir, you gave him a second chance at life. You are his hero." Sarah continued, "You are a veteran, Mr. Howard. You saved a life in the middle of a war, and you saved a life in the middle of a blizzard. You are too good a man to be this lonely." She took a breath, the cold air clouding her words. "So here's our deal, Mr. Howard. We want Rusty to have a good life, but we also want to invite you to be his grandpa." Howard looked up, confusion mixing with his tears. "Grandpa?" "Yes, sir," Tom confirmed. We live only an hour away. We want you to visit often. We want you to call. We want Rusty to spend weekends here with his grandpa. And in fact, we think it's only right that you keep him for this week until he's completely settled. We want you to know that you are part of his family now. And frankly, we'd love for you to be part of ours. The sheer weight of the offer, the unexpected unconditional love and inclusion, broke Howard completely. This wasn't just a happy ending for the puppy. It was a full circle for the lonely old man. He hadn't just saved a life. He had been given a new purpose, a connection, a family. Howard stood up, wiping his eyes on his sleeve. He looked at the young couple, the hope, the kindness, the pure American decency shining in their faces. Sarah, Tom, his voice was thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "Just say yes, Mr. Howard," Sarah smiled. "Just say yes." Howard looked down at Rusty, who was sitting patiently, tail thumping excitedly in the snow. He knelt down one last time, pulling the dog into a warm embrace. "Welcome home, little warrior," Howard whispered. "Welcome home." He stood back up, took a deep breath of the crisp Montana air, and the overwhelming feeling of loneliness finally, fully lifted from his shoulders. He had done the right thing, and the right thing had rewarded him with far more than he could have ever hoped for. The veteran who disliked pets had unexpectedly rescued a frozen Beagle puppy, and in doing so, he had saved himself from a life of frozen isolation. The warmth of his cabin and his heart was full again. The story of Howard and Rusty shows us that even in the coldest darkness, there is always hope. And the greatest compassion often comes from the quietest corners. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below and tell us which part of Howard's journey resonated with you most. And click here to see the incredible journey of another rescue animal right here.